In 1927, a 21-year-old who had grown up without electricity transmitted the first all-electronic television image in history. He had sketched the idea at 14 in a potato field. Within 20 years, the world believed a corporation had invented television. His name was not on it. His name was Philo Farnsworth. This is not the story of who built the first television. That part Farnsworth won in court against the largest electronics company in America. This is the story of how you can win the patent and still lose your name. Of how a 14-year-old sketch kept by a high school teacher decided $1 million case, and still was not enough. Philo Taylor Farnsworth was born in 1906 in a log cabin in Utah and grew up on farms in Idaho without electric power until he was a teenager. He read science magazines by lamplight and rebuilt the farm's generators for fun. And in 1921, at 14, driving a horse-drawn harrow back and forth across a potato field, he saw it. The field was being worked in straight parallel rows. An image, he realized, could be captured and rebuilt the same way. Scanned line by line, row by row, fast enough that the human eye would see a whole picture, electronically, with no moving parts. At the time, the few people chasing television were using spinning mechanical discs, clumsy, low resolution, a dead end. Farnsworth's insight was that the scanning should be done by a beam of electrons, not by machinery. In 1922, still in high school, he drew the concept on a blackboard for his chemistry teacher, Justin Tolman. Tolman did not fully understand it, but he kept a sketch the boy made for him. Remember that sketch? Years later, it would be the single most important piece of paper in the history of television. Farnsworth could not afford university physics. He found backers, moved to a small laboratory at 202 Green Street in San Francisco, and on the 7th of September, 1927, at 21 years old, he transmitted the first image made entirely of electrons, a single straight line of light. His lab journal recorded it plainly. A year later, he demonstrated it for the press. The farm boy had built the future, alone, at an age when most of his rivals had not finished their doctorates. And that is when the Radio Corporation of America noticed him. RCA, under its chairman David Sarnoff, intended to own television the way it already owned radio, to collect royalties, not pay them. RCA had its own television man, the engineer Vladimir Zworykin, who had filed a television patent back in 1923 but had never demonstrated a working all-electronic system. In 1930, Zworykin visited Farnsworth's laboratory and was shown how it worked. Soon after, RCA claimed that its patents came first and moved to take Farnsworth's priority away. The fight went to the United States Patent Office as an interference case in 1934 and 35. RCA's lawyers argued that a farm boy could not possibly have conceived electronic television as a teenager in 1922. And then Farnsworth's old chemistry teacher, Justin Tolman, took the stand and reproduced from memory and from the sketch he had saved the diagram his student had drawn on the blackboard in high school. The patent office ruled for Farnsworth. He had priority of invention. In 1939, RCA did something it had never done in its history. It agreed to pay royalties to an outside inventor, about $1 million, for the right to use Philo Farnsworth's television. He had won everything. And it did not matter. The Second World War froze the commercial rollout of television for years, and Farnsworth's foundational patents, filed in the late 1920s, expired around 1947, just as the post-war boom began. The explosion of television sets into every American living room happened after his patents lapsed, which meant he earned almost nothing from the thing he had invented, and the company that put its name on that explosion was RCA. David Sarnoff was celebrated again and again as the father of television. Farnsworth's name slid out of the textbooks. He had the patent. RCA had the story. The story is what the public remembers. In 1957, a tired, balding man appeared as the mystery guest on a popular television game show called I've Got a Secret. The panel had to guess what he had done. His secret, written for the audience: I invented electronic television. No one on the panel recognized him. He won $80 and a carton of cigarettes. Philo Farnsworth, struggling with depression and money, died in 1971, largely forgotten by the country whose living rooms his invention had filled. His widow, Pem, who had worked beside him in that San Francisco lab, spent the rest of her life fighting to put his name back on what he made. There is a name on the patent. There is another name in the textbooks. Philo Farnsworth saw the future in the rows of a potato field at 14, built it alone at 21, and proved it was his in a courtroom. And the world still handed the credit to the company with the better lawyers and the louder story. He had the patent. They had the story. Only one of those, in the end, is what a country chooses to remember. Erased minds, case files on the people history forgot to thank. New shorts every Tuesday and Saturday, a full story every Wednesday and Friday.